Started. Cool. All right, everybody. I'm James Hislop. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. It's my first time at this club, and I'm enjoying it so far. Today, I'm going to talk about American minerals and basically my journey from start to where I am now. And it's still going up and up. So you know. So we'll just start talking about me. I grew up in Orlando. My introduction to rocks was I had a little piece of tiger eye. I was like, oh, fancy. And you know, you go to the tourist shops in Orlando, black market minerals for one, and they've got all these imported rocks, and you buy an amethyst, and you get pyrite, and you get a little quartz crystal. And then, you know, later in life, I lived in California, and I started to do the research and figure out there's a lot of American minerals and stuff, and I was just never exposed to any of that in Florida. I thought minerals come from other countries. All the cool gemstones are from elsewhere, far away, no way I can ever get to them. But then as an adult, you start to learn America has gemstones. In Florida, they don't even talk about it. They have some cool stuff here, like the crystal whelks, like that. So
what is that?
All right, we'll go into this for a second. So basically, south of Okeechobee and north of Orlando, including right under our feet, is this coquina. Sometimes it's 20 feet down, sometimes it's 50 feet down, sometimes it's 80 feet down. It's a limestone layer made up of shells and sand from large die-offs. In this instance, the critter would have dissolved, creating hydrochloric acid, which would have dissolved the calcium from the shell. Suspended calcium in the pockets would remineralize as calcite crystals. So now you've got those little yellow crystals in there. They're fluorescent and phosphorescent. Didn't bring my black light, but yeah, that's what's going on with that. And that is material that they mine in aggregate mines. The aggregate mines, they mine hundreds of tons of this stuff, thousands of tons of this stuff, make these enormous holes in the ground that end up filled with water. And they take that stuff and they crush it, they destroy it. They don't care about the fossils at all. They just smash it as much as they can and then sell it for road base. So this building is built on top of some crystal whelks, probably that road's on top of some crystal whelks. Pretty much everywhere has got some coquina and some fossils in it. So my idea is just kind of to work towards getting a feed dig. There was another place, Ruck's Pit, that had a feed dig for a while with this similar material. But it's important that people know about the fossil record, so I want to get it more into the public view. That way people can have access to it, and they're not just taking it from construction piles or trying to get into mines or other things like that could be dangerous. So yeah, that's the explanation of that. Okay, so back to the story. I was in California, and I worked in food service for about 10 years and worked for the man and figured out, well, that's not really the thing to do. After a while, like, you got to find a way to set yourself free, and I was getting obsessed with rocks. My girlfriend at the time, she had a surgery where a botched surgery, and so we ended up on the couch. We couldn't go hiking, couldn't go adventuring. She couldn't go do any of that for months. So we watched 40 seasons of Survivor on Netflix. Yeah. So we're just sat there, and it's like, well, what do you do? And you wire wrap, and you take your. I had just started tumbling stones, so I had some dull stones, and I'm like, why can't I get a polish? Whatever, I'm gonna wrap this in wire. And we figured it out. We took apart old appliances, hair dryers, you know, whatever we could to get the copper out and make stuff. And after a while, I graduated to silver, so that was good. And I learned how to make shiny tumbled stones. And so and eventually I had too much of them. So I'd sell them at my little garage sales and stuff. And then eventually went to Quartzsite, Arizona. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It is amazing. The best wholesale capital of rocks that I know of. I mean, there's some other places that are good, but you're not gonna get cheaper wholesale stuff than in Quartzsite, Arizona during the season. There's some shows there that are enormous and fantastic. So we went there and I spent way too much money. And so then I went home and kept doing tumbling and stuff. And the next year we came back as vendors. I brought my trailer and we sold rocks. And it was great, and I got to integrate with the community and figure out that there's American mines and American miners all over the place that are ready to just say, hey, come on over and let's go dig. I found out Arizona has a lot of really great spots to dig and a lot of cool minerals. So yeah, I went back there, and then I decided I was watching YouTube. You see the crystal collector, you know that guy? Well, he's making all these videos of these mines, and I'm like, oh wow, I can go to all these places. So after a while, I took my little notebook here, And I just wrote down every mine I could come up with. I found lists of feed digs and mines all across the country. I wrote down the address. I wrote down where, what the name of the place is, what the phone number is. And then I plotted as many mines as I could on this map. Yeah. And so then it's just a question of connect the dots, right? Try and get the most efficient dot connection. And it's just like, all over the place. So I'll run you through that real quick. So we went through Payson, Arizona. That was really cool. I went with Prospector Paul. He practically discovered this site, and it's just this thin as a rail, 75-year-old dude outrunning me up a hill. I'm like, slow down, Paul. And he's over there just cracking rocks and pulling amethysts out. And I said Payson diamonds, so I'll explain the concept of diamonds. They're double terminated quartz crystals. I didn't bring them, but anytime you got a double terminated, you've heard of Herkimer diamonds, right? They're just double terminated quartz crystals. So that occurs in a lot of different places. I found them in Arkansas and South Carolina. And then there's the Payson diamonds, which are in Arizona. So that's just the concept of diamonds. A lot of times they form just in hard rock and in pockets within those hard rock. Pecos diamonds is another example of quartz clusters diamonds. So after Payson, I was on my way to New Mexico, and my tires on my trailer exploded, and I went all over the road, and it was really terrifying. So make sure to check your tires, and if you're ever going to go through New Mexico to Arizona, don't go through the reservation, because they didn't pay for the road, so it's not there. And so sometimes it disappears, and that's no fun. But my cousin saved me, and that was cool. And then we went to Blanchard Mine, where you find really cool mineral combos. They got over 50 minerals there. So that'd be fluorite, barite, galena, and there's some quartz on there as well. So and everything there is so fluorescent. You put a black light on that, the fluorite goes blue, the barite goes orange. It's pretty sweet. And that's a feed dig. So I'd gone to a couple of feed digs before. I skipped over the Ocean View mine. That was the first feed dig that I really went to. They've got gemstones in every color of the rainbow: blues, greens, pinks, tourmaline, aquamarine, morganite, kunzite, clevelandite, tourmalinated quartz. That's pretty cool. Blue on the outside, pink on the inside, tourmaline. Pretty crazy. This is purple lepidolite with smoky quartz and red rubellite. And it's just got these tourmaline gems all the way through it. Pretty incredible spot. So that's what kind of ignited my passion for digging and actually going to the spots and digging. That was a big part of it. Because you put a bucket of material in, you sift it out, and blue, pink, green, you never know what color is going to come out, and it's so captivating. And to find out that you can go to all these other places and do it is amazing. So when I went to Blanchard Mine, we had a lot of fun. I went with my cousin. When he was younger, he was in Boy Scouts, and he had gone to that mine and found a smoky quartz crystal and brought it to the mine owners, and they said, "Oh, where'd you get that?" Because they hadn't seen the smoky quartz there before. So he took us back to the site where he first found that smoky quartz crystal, and there was tons of that spot was just missing. They had totally dug up the whole site, and there's just a big old hole in the ground. So I just sifted some of the tailings and got myself some nice little smoky quartz crystals. A couple of them were double terminated, so that was pretty cool. All right, next I went to Grand Junction. I got some calcite and barite from the book cliffs out there. They just got big piles of it and stuff. It's pretty cool. You get the book cliffs near Grand Junction area. Then I went with the Grand Junction Gem and Mineral Club out into Utah, and we got pigeon blood agate, which I also didn't bring for some reason. But yeah, it's a beautiful red agate, and it's got whites and clears, and it looks like there's drops of pigeon blood in it. It's pretty amazing. That was a big example of going out with a gem club, and it's just so much more safer to go rock hounding with a group. We went out to this site, and there was a spot where I was like, I'm not putting my BMW down in that wash. There's no way I'll ever get it out, right? So we just parked and hopped in the car with someone else. And they had the Subaru with the Outback package, the super expensive one. It just vroom, like a tank, and I was like, whoa, crazy. So yeah, always rock hound with a group whenever you have that option, for sure. We also found little shark teeth out there pretty close by, which is weird. They must have been really old. All right, next I went to Delta, Utah. Delta's incredible. There was like 10 different digs there. The trilobites were really great. That's some black shale. They just had like a big giant mountain in this place. You're about 10 miles down a dirt road, and it says, in 10 more miles, turn right on Death Canyon Road. It's like, really? Like, there's antelopes running around and rattlesnakes and stuff, and it's like, Death Canyon Road? Do we really have to be so morbid about it right now. Like, there's no BMW dealerships out there, so if I break down, it's like really bad news. There's another little trilobite that actually came out of the Matrix rock, so that was pretty cool. Delta, Utah also has topaz, sunstones. There's the sunstones right there. Right there. That's Sunstone Knoll is a public location, so you can actually just go there and dig. There wasn't even anybody else there, so that was a lot of fun. They've got black topaz, pink topaz, champagne topaz, clear topaz, Bixbyite, red beryl is another cool thing they've got near Delta, Utah. This is the Bixbyite and the pink topaz. So yeah, go to Delta, Utah is my point. That's a place you want to be. There's a big old vial of champagne topaz crystals. Yeah, and pay extra and dig in the blast zone, because if you're cheap, she'll just give you a big boulder and say, go ahead and chip on that. 30 minutes later, you're gonna be like, I'm done with this. Yeah, no, just go sift through the blast zone is my advice for the Delta quarry. And that's the Topaz Dome quarry in Delta, Utah. They also have obsidian, dugway geodes, and yellow feathered jasper was another thing we did out there, as well as the algae balls. I'm telling you guys, Delta, Utah is just every day of the week. I mean, it looks like a feather. It's a black dendrite on a yellow jasper, and they call it yellow feather jasper. That's great.
And what are the dugway geodes?
Dugway is in Dugway. It's in Dugway, Utah, and they're actually fluorescent on the inside. The chalcedony that's in them, so they're like kind of radioactive or something. I think it's uranium that makes them like neon green or something like that.
So that's unique to that area then?
Right, the Dugway geode, yeah.
Okay.
And you can actually probably get some of those. I always tell people try and get American stuff whenever you can. So whenever I see someone selling a bunch of geodes, I'm like, oh, you've got the Mexican ones, you've got the Moroccan ones. Oh, you got some Dugways? Cool, I'll get a Dugway. You know, and go with that. Because they've got some unique formations and stuff like that. And the thing about geodes is the kind of carbon tax from where you're getting them from. So a lot of times if Rockhound's got them, then, you know, it's a little better than if you had to truckload, you know, a giant truckload of them from far away, or fly them in from Morocco or stuff like that. So you got to consider trying to be ethical when you can, you know, when you can. The other really cool thing that was out there was algae balls. 500 million years ago, we had a few things in the ocean, trilobites, whatever was eating the trilobites, and algae. But that was pretty much it. So that would just float around, and every now and then it would grow a new layer. So you can come up later and see all the different layers in that. So that's probably the oldest thing in the room, would be my guess. After Utah, more in Utah. Wonderstone, honey onyx, algae balls, pink topaz, Bixby. Okay, great. Now we're done with these.
What's Wonderstone?
Wonderstone's a rhyolite. It's like a banded rhyolite, and a lot of times it does like kind of bullseye patterns, and it's really wonky looking stuff. It's cool. It polishes pretty well too. So after I went to the Virgin Valley in Nevada. I don't know if you guys can see the color from there, but those are clear gemstones with 7 colors in them. Blows my mind. People are like, what's your favorite rock? And I'm like, probably this one. Or these two anyway, because I could just stare at this all day forever. So what that is a wood replacement opal. There was a caldera, a really violent hot caldera, came down, took down all these trees and buried them all in the swamp. And a lot of it was so hot that the bacteria all burned away, and no bacteria was able to get to the wood and eat it out. Because, you know, if you want to petrify wood, you got to eat the wood away with bacteria, and then it gets replaced by silicates. With this stuff, they only replace some of it. In the instances where it was replaced, it turned into opal instead of agate, and some of this wood is still burnable because it just didn't decay. It was so well buried. So you can actually just do a little campfire with it.
With opalized wood?
With pre-opalized, it's almost opalized. It's like fossil. They called it fossilized. They explained to me it's fossilized. It's not petrified. Okay, whatever. Kind of that. So that's kind of a polished example of some of the wood, and then that's what the fancy opal looks like. That's in the Virgin Valley in Nevada. I went to the Rainbow Ridge and the Royal Peacock. They also have the Bonanza and the Cocopelli. They're all fee digs. So you can go out there and you just do your research because it's 30 miles from a gas station and 100 miles from a grocery store. So when your GPS says, you've arrived, and you're nowhere near anything, and you're on a one-way dirt road with towing your trailer with your BMW like a moron, then it gets nerve-wracking. So make sure that you have all that planned out. Right, paper maps are good if you can figure out your route and make sure that your route's going to get you all the way to the campsite, which it did. It just said, oh, you're here, and I just had to drive a few more miles, and I got there. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Virgin Valley, Nevada. Yeah, then I went to Washington for a few months, just hung out there. My poor rockhound dog, she got old, and she needed some good weather, and she passed away in Washington. It was all sad. But then we went over, me and my other dog Luna, we kept going. What can you do? We went over to Ellensburg and looked for some Ellensburg Blue. In Ellensburg, rockhounds have this reputation for trespassing because Ellensburg Blue is extremely valuable material. It's between $1 and $15 a gram, and it's an agate. It's really bright purple. And there was a feed egg there, but then they kind of got sick, and so that's not really available. So the only legal way to even look for this stuff is to approach landowners. You go up and you knock on the door and hope you don't get shot. Hey, how's it going? My name's James. I've got little puppy dogs, so I'm really unassuming. I was wondering if I could just look around on your property for some rocks or anything like that. And the first couple guys were great. Oh yeah, that sounds awesome, but we don't have any rocks. You want to look over there? And I was like, okay, cool. Oh yeah, maybe look over there. And then, get out of here, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, have a good one. And it's like, well, the sun's starting to go down, so I left. Yeah, sometimes you gotta go, you can try. But that's why Ellensburg Blue is expensive, and why a lot of rocks and minerals these days are expensive is because it's all private land. This is another example of a blue agate. This one I didn't collect. This is like the only thing I brought that I didn't collect. Poly blue agate is in Oregon. This is another thing where the land is bought up. You can't get to it, period. So, ask for permission and don't get shot by rednecks. It's important. It makes the whole community look better when you ask permission instead of just going and trespassing right away. All right, outside of Washington, I went to Montana. In Montana, I saw the most beautiful places, the most beautiful lakes and mountains and rivers. The forestry over there is great. There was controlled burns going on. Literally, we're driving down this road, and there's fire on the side of the road, and then deer hunters. And then I get to the mine, and I'm like, hey, there's a fire. And he's like, don't worry about it. They're just burning the land. It's all good. The trees are nice and spaced. There's no worries. They're just burning the brush. So I think that's a really well-managed and beautiful place. So that was great. And then he tried to get me to marry his daughter. He's like, we've got 250 years of sapphire land. I'm not just going to give it to them if they don't have kids. And it's like, geez, like, I have a BMW. I can't be a Montanan. Sorry. It would freeze and explode. I don't have a truck. And they're like, well, it's only gets to -60. And I'm like, well, come on. And then later he put a whole gopher snake in my arms. And I'm like, oh, what if, like, he's like, look what I found. Here you go. Really? So yeah, you can watch that one on YouTube. You can see the snake. He just didn't want it to get run over, so he brought it back to his property, and I guess he's gonna send it after the mice. And if there's any other snakes there, they'll get those too. That was wild. I love miners. They get so wild sometimes. They get wild. It's rocks in your head, rocks in your garage, rocks in your closet. Okay. Outside of Montana, I went to Spencer, Idaho. In Spencer, Idaho, they have the Spencer Opal Mine. The material there is nebular obsidian and rhyolite, and then later they had some hydrothermal or geothermal activity that came in and deposited layers of silica. And this is a good example of the layers of silica just getting deposited. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And then some of them have really cool rainbows on them, so you can get green flashes and blue flashes and stuff like that. Essentially, a big part of the chemical formula of opals, especially royal opal particularly, is water. It's like an H2O SiO2 or something like that. And so where the water got trapped in the silicate layers, that's where you get your flash and your rainbows. With this stuff, they make triplets. Because it's in such a thin layer, they'll grind the rock down to the rainbow layer, put like a piece of quartz on it or something, and then grind the rock down the other way and put a black backing on it so that you're looking through the quartz, through the opal, and you get all the color out of it. So that's called a triplet. I have no idea how to make one of those. If someone wants to teach me, great. I'll take that class, triplet class. There you go. Sign me up. Then I went to Wyoming, and I found some friends there that they run a rock shop, and I had met them in Arizona. So it's great to do networking because you never know when you're going to run into someone else at a completely different place and time. And they told me, hey, go over there on the side of the road, and there's a bunch of rocks. I was like, rocks? I like rocks. So I went there, and there was agates and jaspers and petrified wood all over the place, and the people there were pretty cool. I went up to these one guys. I was like, hey, you guys own this land? They're like, no, someone else owns that land. I was like, can you call them so I can go look over there? And they're like, no, have a good day. And I was like, well, thanks for not chasing me off. That's as good as you can hope for. No is not the worst thing that can happen. So Wyoming, we did that on the side of the road, and then I went to the Green River, and I got fossil fish. Basically out there, everything's, it's a petroleum shale. So it looks like sand, but like in layers. And then you go up to the quarries there, and they'll take you up. And it was a lot of fun. They had like an off-road van. It was like all the way up. And you ship it out, and some of it is like paper, so it's like a book, and you're just flipping the pages of the book until you find a fossil in it. It's kind of cool. And then a lot of it is you're taking big giant slabs off. And the bigger slab you do, the more chance there's going to be a fish on it. And you can watch my video online and pull out a fish like that. Like crazy fish fossil. Pretty exciting. Really exciting. There's a lot of different places in the Green River Formation where you can go to dig, and they also have a visitor museum that's in my video too. And they've got cool things coming from the Green River, like some of the very first bat fossils come out of the Green River Formation there in Wyoming and Utah. And horses, some really small horses like this, pygmy horses. Weird. They had I want to say 13-foot crocodile, like most of it put together, like the big replica, like way up to the ceiling. Just incredible. All the fauna, all the plants, all the critters, stingrays. Just it's so cool when you walk into a place and they can recreate the entire ecosystem out of what's left behind on the rocks. Specifically with the Green River Formation, there was a saline layer at the bottom of the water, the lake or the river, whatever it was. And when something would die and would go down into that saline layer, again, you have this thing where there's no bacteria. So it would be perfectly fossilized. If there was already bacteria in the fish and there was a whole bunch of air or methane or whatever, sometimes they would blow up. And so you actually find these piles of bones where something died and just all the stuff fossilized in a pile. And you call them explodopithecus or something like that, because they blew up. All right, then I went back through Colorado, which was nice. I went to a place where I had got stuck before in the snow, but I found out they have aquamarine there. I went with Brian Bussey, aquamarine gem tracker, and we went up into the mountains there. We looked around for some aquamarine. That was a lot of fun. He showed me his claim, and apparently it's pretty sketchy up there. That was the sketchiest road I've ever been up. We had to rent a Jeep, so just bump, 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 all the way up the whole thing. My little puppy dog's just on my lap, like, woo, this is fun. Yeah, I stayed there for a couple days, and then the other cool thing, through Brian I met some other guys, actually I met them in Quartzsite, but I reunited with some guys in Colorado, and they have an Amazonite mine. Who likes Amazonite? Check that stuff out. So when I talk about American minerals, this is one that I like to talk about because Amazonite can come from Madagascar, and as the name suggests, it can come from the Amazon in Brazil. And a lot of the times that's going to lead to things like deforestation, artisanal mining, which can be really sketchy, loss of habitat, loss of species, and then you've got that carbon tax where you're flying it in from Lord knows where. Usually they'll fly it to China or Japan, have it processed there, and then bring it back. So there's extra carbon tax associated with that, and a lot of negative things that happen with Amazonite. So if you can get it from Colorado miners, that's the way to go. If you ever need the hookup, I got you. The other really cool thing that they had there was these biotite microcrystals. That's about an 8-sided crystal there, and it still has the singular cleavage like you would expect in any mica crystal. So usually you don't see them fully crystallized like that, and it's still got some of the Amazonite and the quartz on it as well. I think that's a really sweet specimen if you want to come take a look at that later. The other crazy part about that was we hiked it was 4 miles in and 2,000 feet up or something like that, and then through the woods, and it's 45-degree slopes and all this. And I'm like, hey guys, we should probably get out of here before the sun goes down. And they're like, oh, we got a little more time. Okay, and then about 30 minutes later, I'm like, guys, we should probably consider getting out of here. And they're like, oh, yeah. What time is it? I was like, oh, about 7:30. And they're like, no, we gotta go. And then we went up, grabbed everything, threw it in our backpacks. We had 60, 70 pounds of rocks each, and we hiked on back down. It started getting dark real quick. And I was like, guys, this is a sketchy hill. And we got down the sketchiest part just as it was getting real dark, thankfully, and we got back to where it was kind of a flat trail. And we were able to just follow that flat trail back out. Even though it was dark, we could see it. That night there was a super moon, so there was a lot of shade from the trees, but it was nice to be able to drive home on the windy Colorado roads and actually be able to see the road in front of me and know that there wasn't a deer right there. There might be one over there, but not right there. After Colorado, I went to Oklahoma, which I don't recommend doing, unless you're just going to go to the Salt Plains and then get out. I went to the Great Salt Plains. It was a lot of fun. There's nothing else in Oklahoma except for bad drivers and cows and corn, and that's really it. That's really it. So if you go to the Great Salt Plains, you can go out there. It's a public dig, so it's not for commercial or anything like that. But you can go out and dig. Once you get past all the garbage, you just pick that up out of the bird sanctuary, and then you dig your crystals, and that's a lot of fun. So some of the cool stuff that comes out of there is like these. That's a really cool cluster of some hourglass selenite crystals. Those are a lot of fun. That was the only one I brought. But yeah, they're just kind of all over the place. It's pretty easy digging, especially if there's been any kind of rain. They're just all right there on the surface. It's pretty nice. Yeah. And then I got out of Oklahoma just barely. Look out for those texting and driving folks there when you're towing. And I went to Arkansas, which is amazing. I recommend that. Everyone should go to Arkansas multiple times because it's great. Avant, Crystal Vista, Ron Coleman, Jim Coleman, Twin Creek, Wegner. There's more. There's Crystal Vista. Oh, I already said that. All right, great. So, and Avant's Wavelite as well. So yeah, it's mostly quartz mining. I recommend go do the Wavelite dig. I found out you can polish Wavelite, so I did that recently. That's a pretty fun piece. It's basically a phosphate evaporate, so the glaciers receded, and it was like, I don't know. I could pseudoscience the rest, but you don't want to hear that. There's a couple of them. They're botryoidal, and on the inside you'll notice that they have radial shapes. So they've got little circles on the inside of the actual botryoidal nodules, which is really cool. And then quartz. Whenever you're in Arkansas, you're of course looking for quartz. So that's from the famous Ron Coleman mine. It's got a little bit of the blue manganese in there, so you could even call that a phantom crystal. I really like it. That was one of my, that was probably my biggest crystal that I got there. A lady did pull out one that was like that, like just big fat giant Ron Coleman quartz crystals. I liked Avant a lot because I got a whole bucket of material, crystals, loose crystals, and clusters as well. So that was really cool. This one is from Avatar Mine. This is a golden healer quartz cluster. You can see it's kind of gold, and it has a bit of iridescence on it, so you're getting some green and orange flashes up close when you come and look at that. The other cool thing when you're out there in Arkansas doing the quartz is the Crater of Diamond State Park. There was an enormous volcano. These kinds of volcanoes don't even exist anymore. I found out there that diamonds aren't being produced anymore by the Earth because volcanic activity actually slowed down. This was such a huge volcano, it exploded, put these diamonds all over the place, and essentially it's just a big crater. And you go there and there's a state park, you pay them $10 and you go and dig around. The odds of finding a diamond are about 1 in 500, and I knew that going in. So I looked for agates, and I found this really beautiful red agate, and then I polished it up, and it's got really cool banding. Also there they have the museum, and they tell you about how a lot of this material is formed, and they'll tell you the agates, when there was all this volcanic activity, there was voids caused by air bubbles or whatever kind of bubbles, and those voids got filled in, and that's how agates are made there from volcanic activity, where silica fills in voids. Not always, not all agates, but those agates.
We have 2 minutes, and then give people time to come and look.
Perfect. All right, so after Arkansas, I went through Tennessee. I went to the only pearl farm in the United States, and I bought this 78 karat cross pearl, which is super cool. Basically, they take the shell from the mussel, they cut it into a shape, and they put it into another living mussel, which secretes nacre, coats that shell piece, and creates whatever shape of pearl they want to make. So that's really cool. The only pearl farm in the continental United States, and they also export those shell pieces to Japan and China so that they can culture pearls over there. Then I went to North Carolina, and I stayed at Rose Creek, and I went to Cowie Gift Shop, Mason Mountain, Cherokee, and Probst Farm. And those are all ruby and sapphire mines. I highly recommend Probst Farm for the largest rubies. That was the biggest ruby that I got. I like it. Yeah, it's pretty sizable for a ruby. I was happy with that, but the biggest one they showed me was that big. They have rubies that big. Like, are you kidding me? That is wild, and you're not going to find that anywhere near the other mines out there. I also went to the Emerald Hollow Mine and the Heednight Family Campground and the Crabtree Mine. In all those places looking for emeralds. I only found a tiny bit of emerald. I got some little sand grain emeralds here. It's really hard to find emerald, as opposed to sapphires and rubies, in my experience. Then I went to Diamond Hill Mine in South Carolina. Amazing. Iron oxide on Jersey quartz, or whatever you want to call that quartz, microcrystalline, whatever. It's not microcrystalline. And South Carolina, the Palmetto Fossil Excursion, they've got fossils, Ice Age fossils, and megalodons, shark teeth, stuff like that. Got a lot of fossils there. Really expensive dig. Do look out for the pricing when you're going to go there. And great, yeah, then I came back here just working on taking classes, doing processing, sales. Recently I went up to Graves Mountain for their public dig and rock swap. Come check out these specimens. I can't even name half of them, but you know, kyanite, iridescent hematite, petroidal hematite, blue and red kyanite, stuff like that. And then there's a few other things here that I didn't quite get to mention, so yeah, I'd love to answer questions and show you guys whatever I've got. There you go, that's another South Carolina too. Questions?
That's it?
How do you know how to cut those crystal ones?
So this particular one, and I've done it wrong before, but this particular one, I literally found it like this. This is the least amount of work I've ever had to do for something so cool. But I could just see right here, the very top shape of the whelk. And then once I really looked at it, I could see that that was the whole top of it. And so you could kind of see which direction it was going, where the end of the shell was. And then once you can see both ends, then you know where to cut. You want to go all the way down, from top to bottom.
I mean, you cut it in the saw with oil or water?
Oil.
The Marriott Island Public Library will be closing in 30 minutes. Please save all working data on public computers.
Oh, they're closing the library. Okay, cool.
Closing.
Excellent.
But you said that was down 20 feet or, I mean,
Yeah, 20 to 50 feet, the coquina layer. It's called, I think it's called the Nashua layer.
so we can't just find that laying around.
No, unless someone put it there. Yeah, they dig the stuff up and then they use it for construction typically. I'm going to be doing a private dig in the near future where we can get a whole bunch of material, where we can actually get the fossils out.
Most of the riprap that they use on the waterfront, is that coquina?
I have no idea. I don't go around the waterfront.
Yeah.
Coquina's too soft.
There's a lot of different kinds of coquina.
Oh, it is coquina?
So there's the really hard stuff, there's the really soft stuff, there's the stuff that doesn't have calcite, the stuff that does have calcite, the really sandy stuff, the really gray stuff, the really, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of coquina. But basically any limestone or hard rock, they're gonna call it that.
But all the coquina contains fossils.
Pretty much all of it, yeah, it's limestone, so it's all made up of shell and sand material. Some of it's gonna have more fossils than other fossils for sure, or more than others, I mean.
Yeah.
Is there something in South Florida that they created walls or statues or something out of coquina?
Yeah,
I forgot what that was.
the fort. They made forts out of it.
Yeah.
So like Juan Ponce de Leon, all those cats, they came out and made those big giant forts. Where's that big one? You guys remember?
St. Augustine.
St. Augustine.
Manza.
El Castillo or something.
Right. So in St. Augustine, they've got that castle, and the coquina is famous because it would take cannonball impacts and just grab the cannonball. And everyone was like, whoa, we need a bigger cannon. So that was kind of a cool thing that worked out for them with Coquina.
Well, we have to put up chairs so people can sit
Great.
over the top and look at your stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.